Another 7 football myths you still believe. Number 7. CR7 is a World Cup flop. Right, so this is just weird now because it seems like I'm the only one who remembers this, but you do realize that before Messi's win in the 2022 World Cup, he was the one who was widely seen as a World Cup flop and not Ronaldo? I mean, don't get me wrong, that obviously isn't fair. Neither of them were ever flops. But when taking into consideration the lack of genuine quality in 3 of the 5 teams Ronaldo presented in the World Cup, he certainly performed better in more of those outings. Like in my book, Ronnie was better in 3 of them, 2006, 2010 and 2018, and Messi was better in 2 of them, 2014 and 2022. And while we'll delve deeper into their specific rivalry in the grander stage in tomorrow's video, stay tuned. Here I want to focus on CR7 in particular and see from what angle do you perceive him to be a World Cup flop. I mean, look, I'm not a moron, okay? I know most of you don't believe it and I have a pretty good idea why you say it. But since you do say it, here's a quick review of how Ronaldo got on in each of his 5 World Cups so far. He was the best player on his team as well as one of the best players of the tournament in the 2006 World Cup. He was thrown into the group of death, had to face the Ivory Coast, Spain and Brazil with a far below mediocre team and still turned in very decent performances at the 2010 World Cup. He was injured and practically playing on one leg and still registered a goal and possibly the assist of the tournament in the 2014 World Cup. He bagged 4 goals in 4 matches, including a hat-trick against one of the tournament favourites at the 2018 World Cup, and then won a penalty he dispatched himself in the first game and was the primary reason his country broke the deadlock in the second game of the 2022 World Cup. Again, we'll go into significantly more detail tomorrow, but it should be pretty clear from this alone that Ronnie has been far from a flop, my friend, far from a flop. Number 6. Mason Greenwood was Manchester United's next great hope. I'm gonna get demonetized again, aren't I? Well, fuck it, it's not like I was breaking the bank anyway. Manchester United since the beginning of time have been renowned for their youth system. Players who were the core of 2 separate eras of dominance for the Red Devils. And then mix that in with the fact that they haven't really had any real success since the early 2010s. And the fact that some of their recruitment since then has been atrocious. So I guess even if it was subconsciously, some of these men were just praying for one of their own to step up and pull the team up with him, like the old days. And therefore, once they produced someone who even showed glimpses of generational talent, these mandem got way overexcited and said that this kid is up there with the class of 92 as far as potential. No, he fucking wasn't, mate. Hell, never mind these guys, this kid wasn't even a Raval Morrison. Like, I don't know how many of you know about Raval Morrison, but go and watch clips of this guy even as a teenager. He already had the decision making of a player in his mid-20s. Whereas this Mason yeah, he was quick and bow-footed, but saying he had an IQ that even reached double digits would still be giving him the benefit of the doubt. And even by the point he was kicked out when he was 20 or 21, brother, he was still as raw as he was when he was 17. All he did was get the ball, cut in, have a shot. I literally just described like 96% of his game. And yes, look, given that he was 20 or 21, he still did have time to improve, but if you compare him to other famous United youth graduates of even recent times, again, forget even dreaming about Giggs and Beckham, bro, even Paul Pogba was miles ahead of him at 21. And what then doesn't help him being overrated is that because his United career was cut short 3 years ago, people have since then been left to wonder what if Mason remained? Would United still be in the rot they are in right now? Well, yes, you fucking tool. Like, what the genuine fuck do you think he would have done? Wake up, man. Number 5. Marcelo was a bad defender. The recently retired, once rapid and relentless radiant runner of Real's three-peaters, Marcelo, much like many footballers during the social media era, has been the victim of having a reputation inadvertently built on a select few mistakes that people can't seem to forget. Though having said that, there's no doubt that Marcelo in his younger days was defensively negligent from time to time. But that's the thing, you see, not only was all this even back then a little over-exaggerated, but the fact that he from about 2014 onwards was the best and probably also the most complete fullback in the world was rarely ever mentioned. Instead, surprise surprise, it's only the easily clippable parts of Marcelo's game that the online world seem to focus on, whether it's the positive ones like the amazing flicks and tricks and runs, or the negative ones like the early defensive errors, as I said. But again, man, while the long bursting bursts or the bonito Brazilian brilliance in his build-up play was certainly more eye-catching, the importance of Marcelo's defensive shifts to the three-peat journey really should not be overlooked. Because with Ronaldo playing in front of him on the left, this man was left with almost the entirety of the defensive responsibilities of that left-hand side in most games, and be it with his insane engine, last-ditch tackles and or clearances, Marcelo in the second part of his career was a defensive stalwart for Real Madrid. Number 4. Messi leaving Barcelona ruined the club for years. So for the longest of time, the narrative out there was that Messi leaving Barcelona is what caused the club to decline as much as they did. And while the Catalans comfortably bagging the league only a season following his departure surely has opened the eyes of anyone who's not a part of the obsessive Messi fan cult, the truth is, there was no truth to those claims even before Barca's title triumph. Cause you see, from 2018 to 2022, Football Club Barcelona were on very much of a steady decline. And to be brutally honest, Messi's presence in the situation practically made no difference to said situation. Cause you see, since the 18-19 season, Barcelona's standing in the league are as follows. First in 18-19, second in 19-20, third in 20-21, and actually second in 21-22 when Messi wasn't there. And no, don't worry, I'm not daft enough to suggest that Messi made the team worse and him leaving resulted in Barca finishing higher. That was more because of Atleti's drop-off. But the point stands that the consistent negative slope in league positions shows you that the club was in decline with or without Messi. Don't believe me? Well, let's look at a few more indicators. So ever since the 18-19 season, Barcelona's points tally in the league are as follows: 87 points in 18-19, 82 points in 19-20, 79 points in 20-21, and 73 points in 21-22 after Messi left. Once again, consistent downward slope. And if that's still not enough, let's look at the amount of games won in each campaign. So, out of the 38 total league games each season, Barca won 26 of those games in 18-19, 25 in 19-20, 24 in 20-21, and 21 in 21-22. Still not convinced? Okay, screw the league. Let's head over to the biggest competition of all. So, again, ever since 18-19, Barcelona's performances in the Champions League are as follows: a last 4 exit in 18-19, a last 8 exit in 19-20, a last 16 exit in 20-21, and a last 32, aka group stage, exit in 21-22. Number 3. Beckham's basket of blatantly banal and baseless BS. Well, this is pretty straightforward. In fact, all that's really needed is just one word. No. He was not a one-trick pony of just crosses/set pieces. David Beckham was a world-class playmaker who barely ever made the wrong decision in any moment in any given game. He did not dribble because he couldn't. He didn't dribble because he didn't need to. In the systems English teams used to play back then, the only reason wingers would dribble so that they can create enough space to put in an accurate cross. Bex didn't need space to put in an accurate cross. He didn't prioritize his celebrity life over football. Ask anyone who played with him. He was usually the hardest working guy in every team he was in. He did not give up on football after his move to LA. He not only made it clear that he still wants to play for England, and was actually flying back and forth from Europe to America, so much so that, I'm not exaggerating, there were actually concerns over a potential reduction of lifespan. Not to mention also, he tried to force a permanent move to AC Milan following his first loan stint. Boy, how I wish that came to fruition. And no, he did not lose focus after he got married either, sir. Hell, if anything, his best years were from 1997 to 2001. And if I'm not mistaken, that's when he first got with what's-her-face. Number 2. Neville and Carragher were on a similar level. Oh man. It genuinely is hard to believe there are people out there who think these guys were anywhere near a similar level. I mean, if you are old enough to have seen them play and still feel like this, yeah, you're just dumb. But if you're a little younger, well, I guess I can't blame you. Cause let's face it, G-Nev doesn't help himself, does he? Like, I get that whole self-deprecation thing, but he takes it way too far. How does he sit there every week and allow himself to be talked about in the same breath as Lord Spitty Breath over here? I'm sorry, but as players, there was no comparison. And by the way, those of you who believe horse like this, just remember, Gary Neville was the starting right back for what were, in my opinion, the two best single season United sides in the modern era. The 98-99 side and the 06-07 side. Yes, he was the starting right back for two best teams in Europe, nearly a decade apart. You know what that shows? Adaptability. And I'm sure he'd have adapted just fine if he was playing in this era. And in addition to everything else, G-Nev had incredible stamina, hence all the overlaps, read the game as well as any defender around, had extremely underrated tackling, and by the way had a great cross on him too for all the slack he gives himself on his ability on the ball. And bro, I don't care who your teammates are. I don't give a shit if you have Messi and Ronaldo taking it in turns to play in front of you. You were the first choice for one of the best teams in the world across 2 generations. You were the best in your position in the country and one of the top 2 or 3 in the world consistently for well over a decade. And yeah, you've now reduced yourself to be compared to Jamie Carragher. And speaking of whom, here's the summary of Jamie Carragher's career. He played centre-back in Liverpool's worst ever season from a defensive standpoint in years. He was shifted out to full-back after scoring 2 own goals in one game and began 5 years of desperation where he played anywhere he can and was very often embarrassed by wingers. He began his most successful period ever under Rafa Benitez, but even then it was mediocre at best league form, and when Liverpool did well in cup competitions, he was at fault for one, arguably 2 of the opposition goals in the first UCL final. He scored an own goal in the FA Cup final, and again was at fault for the second opposition goal in the second UCL final. His final few years were some of Liverpool's worst ever, with the Giants averaging a 7th place finish between 2009 and 2013, and then they nearly won the league the season after he left. And you know what, I'd usually end it there, but as much as I tried to make myself forget, Carragher has also played a handful of games for one of my boyhood team, the English national team, somehow making it to two World Cup squads. Yeah. So how did he fare? Well, he got ripped up and dragged around so much against Trinidad and Tobago in 06 that he had to be subbed off shortly after halftime, primarily due to exhaustion. Almost gave away a penalty in the next game against Sweden. Not to mention he also up the only thing he was brought on to do against Portugal and missed the penalty. And got completely rinsed again and almost cost England a goal in his only appearance in the 2010 World Cup against the United States of America. You know, those footballing giants.
Go Manchester United!
Yeah, there should be arrest warrant sent out to anyone who believes these guys were comparable as players. Number 1. Prime Ronaldo was as good of a dribbler as Messi. No, he wasn't. Because you see, many people these days, particularly the younger fans on social media, make some debatable and often outrageous claims on Cristiano Ronaldo's dribbling ability. Some say Ronaldo has never been a great dribbler, while others say peak CR7 was the greatest dribbler ever. And yes, of course, no matter what side of the fence you do fall in, these statements are usually made with a comparison to one Lionel Messi. And of course, this video too will have the core of its discussion dominated by the debate dedicated to delineating the differences between the daringly decisive, distinctly disciplined and determined diving diva with a droid-like drive but a divisive disposition, and the demure, adored and diminutive but deceptively deadly, dynamic and dazzlingly deluxe dribbling demon, deft in daunting and demeaning defenders in the drop of a dime. So here's my in-depth take on exactly how close a peak CR7 was to his career rival in terms of dribbling ability. But first, a few things to address here. Number 1, when it comes to dribbling, I'll be taking Ronaldo's peak as up to and including the 09-10 season, his first at Madrid. And number 2, my judgments will not be based on the sheer number of dribbles they've completed. As I've said many times, stats without context is basically FIFA. And sorry to break it to you kids, but we're not in FIFA. And for those wondering what context I'm referring to, A, the vast majority of CR7's dribbling peak was spent not just in the Premier League, but the mid-2000s Premier League no less. And well, And B, Ronaldo for pretty much all those years played a lot wider than Messi, and though the concept of dribbling is usually linked to wingers, fact is the central attackers on average get significantly more opportunities than the wide players do. And Messi, even when he did play out wide, always had the license to cut in and get more involved. In contrast, Ronaldo for quite a few years was almost exclusively hugging the touchline as he was bought with the intention of replacing David Beckham. So with that all in mind, how good of a dribbler is the naughty CR7 compared to Lionel Messi? Well, I believe it was Mike Tyson who once said this, but let's start from the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. So Messi's dribbling technique has more or less remained the same throughout his career. He relies on close control, body feints, multiple little touches, and this is probably the only distinct change from his younger days, acceleration over 5 to 10 meters to beat his opponents. And once that explosiveness did diminish, he began to rely even more on the body feints, his low center of gravity, as well as his increased body strength to shake off challenges. And in situations where he'd burst forward himself after beating a couple of defenders in his younger days, Messi instead focused more on threading the ball through to a teammate, or vast majority of the time, spot that overlapping run from his wide man. On the other hand, even though we are only comparing a specific portion of Ronaldo's career to Messi's entire career, CR7 had actually changed and evolved his dribbling technique a lot more in those 8 years than Messi has in 19. Cause you see, from 2002 to 2006, despite being one of the quickest players in the world, pace wasn't really the primary weapon Ronaldo utilized when trying to get past a fullback. Instead, it was all this. So what would usually happen is Ronaldo would receive the ball from out wide, do about 2 or 3 tricks to get past one player, and either cut in and shoot, or far more often than not actually, take it to the byline and cross it in. And while all this stuff does look good on these video compilations, a lot of the time it just wasn't very effective, and at times would end in either one of the two ways. Either he'd do about 50 step overs, miss his cue to progress play and just pass it back, or, for the lack of a better phrase, he'd get the crap kicked out of him. So much so that the United winger actually needed an operation on his ankle, not because of any isolated incident, but because of an accumulation of fouls committed on him. And ironically enough, the times where he'd actually put up successful dribbling performances was when he'd cut down on all the fancy flicks and tricks and just put on the afterburners and burst past people. Now this was obviously picked up by some of the United coaches, most notably Rene Mullenstein, who then went on to work extensively with Ronnie on a one-on-one basis and, above all, emphasized the importance of efficiency in all aspects of his game. And in the context of dribbling, efficiency meant that instead of receiving the ball and pulling off 2 or 3 tricks at once, Ronaldo in the next 4 years adopted a dribbling style which focused on him usually using one body feint or trick to create enough space for him to push the ball into an empty area in front of him and burst past the defender, using not only his pace more effectively but progressing play more urgently. And those subsequent 4 years from 2006 to 2010 were for me the absolute peak of CR7 as a dribbler, because while he did complete a smaller quantity of dribbles, he was exponentially more effective with it. And well, that is what it's about at the end of the day. And don't get me wrong, he was as, if not more effective during his overall peak from 2010 to 2014. But fact is, as he developed a lot more dimensions to his game, his dribbling had become a far less pivotal part of his game. Whereas in the period between 2006 and 2010, Ronaldo had the best balance of frequency and effectiveness. And by the end of his first season at Madrid, he was quite comfortably one of, if not the best dribbler in the world. Which actually nicely brings us back to topic. So, does Ronaldo's evolution in the first 8 years of his career into pretty much the ideal modern day wide midfielder prove that he at his peak was a better dribbler than Messi? Well, for me, no it doesn't, cause simply put, there's a reason why most people put Ronaldo's success down to pure hard work while claiming Messi was just born talented. You see, CR7 had to change his dribbling style due to his ineffective raw tendencies. Messi didn't. And in addition, it could be argued that the nature of Ronaldo's evolution as a dribbler was one of the contributing factors to his eventual downfall as a dribbler. Let me explain. So as many of you may know, in and around the summer of 2014, Ronaldo suffered a knee injury that had robbed him of his once lightning and in turn frightening pace, eventually leading him to change his entire game. Now you see here, there is a very plausible argument that had Ronaldo post 06 developed his dribbling in a way that relied more on technique and tricks and less on sheer pace and acceleration, his dribbling related in-game influence would have been somewhat sustainable even post-injury, but as it happened, that was the only way he knew, and post the injury, there were times his frustrations with his own game was painfully obvious, as he was trying to do what he'd always done, but with less than satisfying results. Now, whether Ronaldo as a matter of fact would have sustained his dribbling ability had his technique been different, we will never know, but what we do know is Lionel Messi just never had any of those problems, and while aspects of his game like his free kicks improved with time and practice, it was obvious that this man was gifted with a pretty much unrivaled dribbling ability from the very start. And I've said this many times before, but personally, he is the greatest dribbler I've ever seen. Therefore, peak for peak, if I were to rate these guys' dribbling skills on my 7-scale scoring system as I seek to successfully summarize this special and stimulating but seemingly ceaseless and unsettled subject with sufficient insight and serious sincerity, Messi would rank a 6.6, while Ronaldo a 5.7. i.e. far better than good, but a smidge short of great, meaning that while he was still noticeably below Messi as far as dribbling was concerned, he was still one of the, probably second actually, best dribblers in the world for quite a number of years. And when you consider that on top of the fact that he probably went on to become the greatest header of the ball the game has ever seen, as well as the greatest goal scorer and big game player, if you judge the man across his entire career and create a version that would embody him at his best in separate attributes, for me, he's the most complete attacker in football history.
Keep on rolling, people.